I feel like most car enthusiasts like cars that are of their era and of their age. And you mentioned to me, you were like, I don't even know what this is. Like, I stopped caring after the 360. And you said, yes. I only care because, you know, it has a gated shifter, and that car has a gated shifter. So why the attraction to the vintage ones? Like, what's there's got to be something.
I have a follow-up question to this, by the way,
yeah.
So let's not get away from that. I think it's a good question, so go ahead.
I do not recall.
You plead the fifth.
I'm just kidding. I think this might sound cliche, but I think with the 50s, 60s, 70s cars, there is such a visceral experience, a visceral driving experience. Yep. And I mean, the cars that I feel like I keep saying this because I'm so privileged to be able to work on these incredible automobiles. The reason those were created was to have an experience. Mm-hmm. They weren't to get from point A to point B, you know, and move on to the next thing and hustle and bustle and, you know, do a million things throughout your day, which is, you know, you get in your car, you press the on button and you go, and you don't think about it. Mm-hmm. That's how cars today are made and designed. And that just something, it wasn't in the thought process before. And I think it's evident in every single detail in those cars. They're special. And it, you know, so special that you could even argue that they have souls.
Right.
You know,
they do.
Fuel injected cars, maybe they don't. Yeah. So I think for me, it's just, that's why my passion is there, is because they're so unique and because they provide access to a time that truly no longer is, especially when you drive them.
I was going to say that. And you get hooked when you drive a car that, a car that you would drive, that you would service at your shop. You drive it before it gets serviced and you're like, this is great. This is, you know, I feel like this is driving, you know, this is a great experience. And then you service it.
Oh, it's so much better.
A proper service. And then you drive it and you're like, holy shit, this is like a completely different car. And I think that for me was, you know, the first one of the cars. It was a Porsche, but a 67S that we bought at an auction. I drove it. I was like,
not me.
I was like, this is a great driving experience. You know, love it. I can understand it. We sent it out, got it serviced, pretty major service, came back. It was like a new car. And I think that feeling of not only providing that satisfaction to a customer, but being able to bring that car back to how it's, you know, its true potential. I think that is really the difference, like you were saying, from like a 599 GTO to, you know, let's say a 330 GTC or something like that, like, which is one of my favorite driving cars.
I mean, in like the 599, is that what it is?
Yeah.
GTO.
In the other room over there, that thing's incredible.
It's amazing.
You know, I'm not going to argue with you that it's not. It's absolutely incredible. But I think I am so focused and devote so much of my time to learning to become an expert in the early cars that, you know, I'm kind of saving that for somebody else who has that same amount of passion. I would hope that the people working on those cars have the same amount of passion that I have working on the early cars.
Mm-hmm. And kind of going off what Sean said, you know, servicing does do so much for these cars, and Ferraris are maybe renowned, true or false, that service is expensive and things go wrong. And when they do go wrong, it's expensive. I guess my question is, what kind of advice would you give to someone who owns a vintage Ferrari to kind of get the most out of it? Because
I know what she's going to say.
Because obviously, well, I think I know what I hope I know what she's going to say, because my gut reaction is you have to drive the bloody cars. Yep. But at the same time, you have to service the cars. You can't just let them sit or drive them without being serviced. So, like, what would you say to someone who's looking to get the most out of their 330 GTC, for example?
Drive it.
Amen.
Keep everything lubed up.
I mean, that's when all of your systems function the best, as they should. If you let your car sit for a year, I was going to say 5 years, but even a year, your hydraulic systems are shot. They're going to need to be serviced.
It's going to need to be serviced either way, so you might as well drive it.
Exactly, and I think we kind of have a shared mentality at the shop, which is if you have your car, use your car.
Yep.
Enjoy your car. Don't just stare at it. And I think it was built to be driven. It may as well be driven.
Right.
And sure, I understand that, you know, a lot of Ferraris are quite valuable, and you know, you're not just talking about, you know, a $500,000 car. Sometimes, you know, you're talking about multi-million dollars. Yeah. And so I think that sometimes from the owners there can be a sense of fear to hurt it or damage it, but at the same time, back to what we used to say in high school, you only live once.
Yep.
YOLO.
Drop a gear, baby.
Why not enjoy it? But I think also, you know, from a maintenance perspective, they just work the best when you do use them.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
And I think we've all come to understand that.
We all attest to that.
Yeah, you don't want your jets getting all clogged up in your carburetors
Sam.
over there. You know, and if you use it, they won't.
So what has been the greatest Ferrari driving experience that you've had?
That was actually my next question.
If you can say.
Oh my goodness.
If you could, or maybe if
Well, I
you
can
narrow
say
it down to a
we
couple of them.
we are well insured at the shop. So
Yeah, of course.
and it's part of the job. You have to drive it to figure out what's wrong. And
I
then you
gotta
have
figure out what's wrong.
Then you have to, you know, you fix it and you have to drive it again to make sure that you actually fix the problem.
Yep.
It's a safety issue. Come on.
Yep.
We call it tech support.
Oh yeah, I'm big on tech support. Yeah, give me 3 hours.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness. I don't know. It's hard to pick a favorite, but I think the most memorable experience was probably my first 2 days there. My first day, I drove my first Ferrari, or the first
Right.
Ferrari I had ever driven, which was a 365 GTC.
Nice.
Great start.
Nice.
That same day, an hour later, I drove a 250 Lusso.
Oh.
And then the next day, I drove a 275.
Oh my God.
And so
My favorite Ferrari.
to
So
have
beautiful.
that, like, I just was on an adrenaline high
Yeah.
that kind of hasn't
Yeah. You're like, this place is going to work out.
because I get to keep
Yeah.
doing that. And so it's like but at the same time, it's been, well, so when we're talking about favorite, I think we have such a diverse amount of
Yeah,
how do you
makes
say
sense.
that?
Yeah.
All the experiences are
we have
different.
a lot of diversity within,
Yeah.
you know, the cars that we get to work on at the shop.
What is your favorite part during the drive? Is it shifting? Is it the sound? Is it flying through a corner? Is it the braking, steering, or just the wind through your hair? Like what's your favorite part of the drive?
So with the 60s cars and kind of 70s as well, 60s, let's just say with the 50s through 70s,
Yeah.
the carbureted cars, you really have to listen to the motor to know when to shift.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't just shift.
No.
You have to really listen, but also feel it. And so I don't know how to say this without.
It's good advice for someone that
It's
we
like-
know.
it's like
actually.
it's
you
bec-
can't just shift. You're gonna
Yeah.
hurt it if you just try and slam it
Yeah.
in second.
It's like
or third
becoming
or
one.
whatever.
It's learning to become one with
Exactly.
the
It has to
car.
become an extension of
Yeah.
yourself. And so I think being able to just kind of know because you just
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
it, because you just get
Yeah.
it, because you, this is going to sound so weird, but you have a relationship
Yep.
with these gearboxes, with these motors. You know when, and you know when it's happy, and you know when it's mad, and
Yeah.
you know when it's just being cheeky.
Yeah.
So
And no two are the same. They have similarities, but they drive. You know, no two cars are ever going to be the same from that era.
I think our collective earliest Ferrari driving experience with Audrain is Ferrari 330 GTC, and we absolutely
Interesting.
Like the earliest one I've driven.
yeah. What's the earliest? That's
No, the 52.
okay. The 250 Europa.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't driven that car.